Well, hello, folks, and welcome to our very first episode of Recruiting Live in 2017 with the Three Stooges, as you can see. Um,
Hello.
Now, before I introduce my Stooges here today, I do want to remind you what Recruiting Live is all about since we've been on a hiatus for a little bit. Now, Recruiting Live is about bringing a little bit, like 3 weeks. So, Recruiting Live is all about giving you access to people so you can ask questions and get to know their strategies and help you solve problems. So taking that, webinar or conference model where you might go in with 100 other people and listen to a presentation, what you want to know. These conversations are driven by your questions. So you have to ask questions, and you'll do that on the GoToWebinar control panel under the Questions tab. If you just type in your question or comments at any time, because you know these three can handle a little embarrassment, help me out, please feel free to type those in, and we will take those as we go. Carrie Mills just wanted to welcome the good-looking fellas. Nice to have you here.
Oh, Carrie, it's my heart.
If you guys want to test out the question pane quickly to see if it's working, just type in hello. I'll be able to see anything you send. Always nice to see everyone here. Allison's here. Welcome, welcome. Lenore and a bunch of others coming in. So let's introduce this group. All right. So let's start with Mr. Levy. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your background, what you're doing today, and yeah, whatever you want to say.
Well, my background really quickly, I am the oldest man here. I personally, sorry, it's kind of clear who's the man, who's the woman. That's a story, Katrina, we can tell someday.
Yes.
In 3 minutes.
For those who don't know me, I'm an engineer focused on the dark side. I run recruiting in a couple of places, blah, blah, blah. I like ranting on people like Matt Charney. Why? Because it's just too damn easy. Right now I am part of the, believe it or not, Sears Holding Company sourcing team. It is not an easy job, but you know what? Sears is iconic. I love the brand. I grew up with the brand. Going to support the brand. So, you have a problem with that.
All right. Radloff.
So I'm Pete Radloff. I like long walks on the beach, moonlights. I'm the principal technical recruiter here at ComScore. Me and Derek share some space in the back where most other people dare not come. Started on the agency side, moved over to the corporate side. Been in the corporate side now for, I guess, going on 11 years, almost 12 years. So, I fancy a little bit of writing on the side. I'm not sure what Levy's doing, but I'll let Derek go next.
I feel like I'm in a bad episode of the Brady Bunch in the very
That's
beginning.
exactly what Michael Townsend just said.
You know what I mean? Here's a story of 3 recruiters. Anyway, Derek Zeller. I work with the schlub upstairs here. We're on the 5th floor, and he is right. We are on the corner of desperation and hell a lot of times. When anybody comes to see us, they always kind of like look down, like, I'm sorry. I'm bringing you another problem that you need to solve. I've been recruiting this is my 20th year, my 20th anniversary in the industry. I occasionally like to write for, certain sites, recruiting blogs, Recruiting Daily, a couple of other sites. Then I blog about recruiting, I blog about life. Every once in a while, you'll see me at a conference, and one of my posts that I put out just recently said, "Come and see us at SourceCon." The 3 of us will be at SourceCon coming up right now. If you do it before the 13th, you get $300 off, which is a pretty good deal. And you get to meet the 3 clowns here, maybe even the 4th clown, Katrina. I don't know if you're going or not. But the 3 clowns will be there. Steve and I are actually part of a welcoming committee. So we're there with arms open, and I also give out free hugs. So
yes, great hugs too.
Hashtag
Yes, absolutely. So I want to start with a non-recruiting related question. We're going to do a little word association. Of course, answer any questions from people who are live on the air right But I want to know what you guys would be doing if you were not recruiting.
Oh, that's so easy. I'd be making pizzas again. It's so great. So great. And I have a great story to tell. I'm like, I'm just a stupid Mick who's in here in an Italian restaurant making pizza. What do you want from me?
I love it. How about you, Zeller? I have a feeling I know what your answer is, but...
You do?
I do. I think you'd be working at a bar.
Okay, so it's funny that you said that. It probably wouldn't be. The thing I would probably go back to doing, which was a passion of mine that I honestly do miss, is I'd go back to teaching diving.
Okay.
Go back to teaching scuba
diving.
diving because
diving instructor until right before this call.
I'm actually I'm a certified, non-licensed, but still certified master instructor with Patty. I've probably dove over 10,000 dives in my lifetime. Been diving for a very long time. And I miss it because it was really great. You could go underwater and then you can come up and get sloshed. Sorry, it's a bad diving joke. But
well, it's not a bad diving joke. It's like firstly sourcing your deep diving, thing there, and you're underwater, so you can drink like a fish.
Yep.
So
we had a lot of. Until I got into recruiting, I was recruiting people for the dive shops that I was putting around the world. So that was how I literally got into recruiting and how to write an ad, and how to interview people and so on and so forth. And I'm like, wow, you actually can do this for a living and make better money than I'm making? I'm in.
It sounds like the story. That sounds like your bar story when you had the bartender do your recruiting for you.
Oh yeah,
that's a great.
Oh yeah, really. I still wish I could find where she's at.
Well, you're a sourcer. The three of us knuckleheads should be able to find her.
I know her first name. I don't even have her last name anymore. All I know is the last time I saw her, she was on her way to San Diego with her boyfriend that was joining the Navy, or was going in the Navy or something like that.
It'll be a special project of ours.
It'll be fun. I'd love to see Lily again.
How about you, Levy? What would you do?
Well, I've already done the best job ever. Pete knows it. If anyone's ever gone to Jones Beach in New York, I was Jones Beach lifeguard for 34 summers. Grew up, I was a big full head of hair. Some of you have seen the picture of me with a full head of hair. And you, Pete, without the chain. I saw those young pictures of you making fun of me. But these are folks who I grew up. Some of them in age group swimming. We were teens together. We went to each other's weddings. Saw their kids being born. Now their kids are guards. I was coming back from Chicago just a couple of weeks back, and they're one of my friend's kids. He's a Port Authority cop, and he looks at me, sees me, he looks with both fear and just, oh my God, what is Levy going to do now? So there, he's dealing with an immigration issue, and I give him a big hug. I go, give Mom and Dad a kiss for me. He goes, okay, and I spoke to his dad a couple of days later. He said, yeah, he called right away. So I've done that, but I think if I wasn't recruiting, I'd be one of two things. And some of you have noticed I'd either be a kindergarten teacher, quite frankly, because I've worked with executives, and I think kindergarten students have a higher EQ anyway. Or I'd be a park ranger, in some desolate space, because I just, give me my Leatherman. I know I can live outside. I think that'll be kind of fun. Grow the beard, get that real Sons of Anarchy look going.
So Stephen Davis asked a really good question. He's like, we hear it all the time that you should do what you're passionate about. So why don't you do what you're passionate about? Are you more passionate about recruiting?
I am. And I will say, I'll just answer that question with this. The owner of the dive store that I used to work for, was one of the most successful dive stores, not only in the country, but one of the top in the world. It's called Ocean Enterprises up Balboa Avenue. And the owner is Werner Kern, a German immigrant that came here. And I once asked him, I said, Werner, what do you want to do in 20 years? He says, I want to be doing something else. He goes, because the way you make a small fortune in the dive industry is start with a large one. So it's a passionate and it's fun, but it's a young man's game. And I'd rather do it recreationally now as opposed to the stress of teaching. And I truly am. I mean, if I wasn't passionate about recruiting, I wouldn't have done it for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I can go and make $10 an hour making pizzas, but college tuitions are going to come up in a couple of years, and my wife has expensive taste. So yeah, I mean, people say that, but I genuinely do. I genuinely do love what I do, like, and I'm moderately good at it. Like, so why wouldn't I stick with that? And frankly, I'm 41. Like at this point, I'm not getting off the train to start doing something else because I don't, come from money.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, in 2 years I'll have been in recruiting for 30 years. When I hit 60, I'll have been doing recruiting for 30 years.
Yeah.
I like how I can change how we all change people's lives. How the three of us, four of us, and amongst others, and Davis is part of the cult, so to speak. We want to improve the profession. It doesn't preclude us from liking other things. I'm not going to lifeguard anymore. I've been there, done that. I have the scars and the replacement hip joint to prove it. But as Peter from all those years trying to become a New York Islander, but we wouldn't do this if we really didn't love it. And as evidenced by it is the fact that all four of us and then some we get ticked off when we see stupid recruiter tricks, it means something. There's something behind that. That's we like what we do.
I think the way that all of you tell candidate stories is one of how you know how much you love it, right? The way that Derek talks about a person he met 18 years ago at a bar and can remember it in a recruiting context, but remembers how, the whole progression of that conversation and that person and how their life changed. I think when it makes that kind of impact on you, I think it's clearly something that you love.
Well, and when you're in a profession and you see you're dedicated to your profession and you see bad things happening in your profession, you're ambivalent about them, then it's probably not your passion. And if it does get under your skin, then you probably know you're doing the right thing. And
by the way, that sentiment, in other things that we've done in our lives, it's carried over.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, from when I was I was a hard ass for doing things the right way. If you do things the right way, you save people. If you do things the wrong way, not only you might not save people, you're going to get hurt yourself.
Right.
So, you become an evangelist for, doing things the right way and treating people well, and all of us are the same.
The cool thing about working at ComScore, to give it kind of some praise, is that, and Pete will know this even better than I do, is that when we're walking down the hallways to go see a manager or just, or doing whatever, you see the people you hired, that you got hired, and they wave to you. Just on my way down here, three different people were as I was walking by, they're like, hey, Derek, hey, how's it going? It's like these are all three were the people that I was involved with in the hiring process, and that's just kind of a heartwarming feel. When you're feeling down, it's kind of just cool to go talk to somebody that you got hired and follow up with them. How are things going after 3 months? How are you enjoying it? Things like that. And I mean, and the referrals come in, it's just the flowing goodness of good people know good people, and it makes your job so much easier.
So I have a great follow-up question on that from Allison McKay. She said, I have a new sourcer starting with 0 recruiting experience, no agency experience either, that she's going to start mentoring. What's the most important thing to help them learn? I feel like we're already touching on it, but I'll let you.
I'll tell you this is another true story. There have been a few times where I helped somebody get into sourcing, and I asked them, simple question, turn it personal. And I said, in addition to finding people, is there someone who you've lost track of that you want to find again? Stalk them a little. I remember one person, I won't name her name because she's the head of recruiting at a nice real estate company in New York City. She did just that. There was some ex who was just really mean to her, and she had lost track. I said, let's go find out what the douchebag's doing. So we did. And she goes, oh, that's it. It's sourcing. That's all it is. We found phone numbers, emails, you name it. Could have put together a really fun piece of copy to send out. But then once you make it personal, then it becomes, oh, now I see what this is. Because if you start off, to Allison's point, if this person is going to use text up with you, and they've never done tech before. Oh, look, let's go find a Ruby on Rails person. And I'd rather have a lobotomy than start out with that.
How about you two, Pete? I know you and Derek have both mentored new recruiters and sourcers before.
Yeah, and I think it's, you can't throw everything all at once. It starts small. The woman who works for me right now, she has become like the greatest Swiss Army knife that's ever worked for me, because little snippets I would give her and kind of tell her I was holding onto the back of the bike, to use a euphemism. But when she turned around, I actually wasn't holding onto the bike anymore, and then that's when the aha moment comes. And so it's there's a lot to digest in this field, and probably because it's still such a loose field. The ATAP is still in its infancy, so we're still seeing some of that come to fruition. But you can't digest all of this in a week. It's never going to happen, and you have to take little bitty steps. And if you're going to teach somebody to source, the first thing I'd say is, okay, let's make sure you can master, how to get through somebody's LinkedIn profile first. Make sure you understand how to get through an advanced search in LinkedIn. If you can do that, great. We'll move on to the next thing. But it's one by one, and it sounds cumbersome. But if it's something that you're going to be doing for the next 15 or 30 years, then you want to take it in bite-sized chunks.
And I think there's a message to add to that, and I think Allison knows this because she's spoken to a couple of us already, is that you're never going to learn everything in this profession. One of the reasons why, I know Pete and Derek, and you're the same way, we get a kick out of meeting our peers at conferences, is that we learn things from each other. It's like, oh my God, can you show me how you did that? And then we geek out more with each other. Well, probably with the exception of Derek, who's always absconded in elevators by people who go, oh, look, it's Derek Zeller. Oh, my gosh. In the flesh, he's real.
That was kind of cheesy.
Well, it is what it is. We're like, not only we're the Three Stooges, we're the Three Cheeses. But that's the cool part about it, Allison. You let her know that she's never going to stop learning, and there's always something interesting, mind-blowing to learn.
I'm going to use the analogy of you're drinking from a fire hose. And you're always going to. I've done this for 20 years, and I'm still learning new tricks and tips. And people like Aaron Lentz just blows my mind sometimes, or Mike Wolford, the guys you don't hear about very much other than inside the industry. I love reading their stuff. Glenn Gutmacher. You ever watch Tim and Shally Steckler get together and start doing stuff online? I get lost. I just put the pencil down and just try to memorize.
That's why we're talking a Penn and Teller comedy show, by the way.
Yeah. But my best bit of advice is this. You can learn how to find people. You can learn how to find information. You can learn how to do everything that you need to do, find people, so on and so forth. But the one thing you need to know is what the hell it is you're looking for, and have the background and the knowledge of what you're sourcing for. When I first came to ComScore, I'd never done data analytics before. So I spent a lot of time with my managers and the kids just doing the jobs to learn, okay, what is it that you do? So I know I'm asking the right questions so I get the right resumes.
Yeah.
And the second thing is know your systems. Before you start picking up the phone, know the process and have a process in place that you're going to follow all the way through each and every time, and learn what that process is. You can have your own, but there's a certain specific that you need to understand how to work your ATS. You need to know how to work your email systems. You need to learn more about your managers. Take those first couple of weeks, learn about your company, learn about how they work, how your managers work, how they want things. Their systems are kind of like they've already been there for a long time, and then sit with Allison, right? Who's done this for a while. She's pretty damn good, and have her just sit there and watch you do it.
Exactly.
How you script and stuff, and then you build it on your own.
Yeah, Stephanie David said, the importance of recruiting the right way is that you remember it's all about people. And you mentioned a lot of those specific people, but that's the big picture, right? It's like, how do we interact with people to help have the best outcome and really get to know them, get to know their passions?
When I was at Living Social, Ian Jones and I had a team that was the most raw team that you could have been given. It was people maybe a year in the industry, some of them straight out of college. And I think what we talked about was, instead of like, what we realized is we need to list everything we want to teach them. Just keep this big, massive running list of things we want to teach them and not tell them any of that stuff right away. Because if we didn't do that, we would be like, oh, but wait, you should know about this too. And we would actually never get to the point that we got it. Looking back on that now, those 10 or 11 people all are running their own teams or are leading their own teams right now, or in senior recruiter type of roles, senior sourcer type of roles, because we realize you can't make them digest everything. So we literally had three panels of a whiteboard that just had information what we were going to tell them eventually when we got to it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, actually, one of the things before I forget is, especially a new sourcer, is you're going to hit a roadblock every day, and you have to be sure, spend some time trying to figure it out, but don't fake it. And then when you get to that roadblock, go to somebody and say, just show me how this is done. I've gone as far as I'm able to do. We see those questions in the groups all the time. I can't find this person. I can't find that person. Can you help me? Where the should be saying is, this is what I've done so far. What else can I do? Where have I gone wrong? Where have I gone right?
Ask questions. Ask questions, number one. And then as you further into your career, flip the script and start answering questions. That's the big difference. Don't take the knowledge and then just hide it. Share it with other people.
I have a question from the Tim Sackett. Thanks for being here, Tim. Of course, phrased in the way that only Tim would.
Only Tim can
he
say.
said, I have a question for the middle-aged white dude panel.
I resemble that remark.
Right. Why do most corporate recruiters suck? What would you do to fix it in the fastest way possible? It's a good question.
Oh, Sacco. Why do most recruiters suck, period? We've had this discussion many a time. It's not a question of whether you're an in-house recruiter or an out-house recruiter. The fact of the matter is, why is this profession replete with spam? Why is this profession replete with people who lie? Why is this profession replete with people who don't follow up? It's not an in-house versus an out-house thing. But frankly, on the inside, your deliverables are different. Your process might be different. Which is not to say one is better than the other. Frankly, there's a reason why having that experience in all different venues is probably very helpful.
I have a severe dislike of hiring any recruiter on the corporate side who has not done agency work. I need to know that they worked for their food before they come and get their food handed to them, and they can just eat it at their leisure. And I think that's a difference between agency side and corporate side. And now that said, I mean, a shitty mechanic will train a new mechanic to be a shitty mechanic. So a lot of that has to do with people internally. And again, as we've said hundreds of times, there's no barrier to entry to getting into recruiting. Heartbeat, an Excel spreadsheet, and a laptop get you in. You're all good. And the ability to use a phone at least 10% of the time. I think that makes a big difference. But I have a strong bias against not hiring corporate recruiters who have not done the agency side.
I think that's a certain point. But the thing is, a lot of corporate recruiters don't want to be recruiters. They want to go, but it's an easy entry point into human resources. I was chatting about this last night with a friend of mine. It's like human resources is that group of people that they kind of like bar themselves off from the rest of the company. And they're like their little clique over here. And it's really hard to get into that clique. So if you get a so let's go, you went to school and you got a human resources degree, okay, but nobody will hire you because you don't have any experience with inside human resources. So they just throw you into recruiting for a while, and then you kind of just sit back and you wait for an opening, and then you move over. I've seen that a lot in corporate recruiting. A lot.
Because no one's going to be thrown into compensation or benefits out of school, are they? Put them into recruiting. What do you look like? Are you like a whipping post?
No.
Hey, Sacco, would you your son, who's, by the way, Sacco, I'm up in Beacon, so I can see your son if you want me to. Would you let your son go into recruiting? I'd like to type the answer to that one.
And Jess Roberts said it's full of spam because it works 2% of the time, and bad people hang on to the 2%. And I think that's really true. Like, if anything works, they're just going to beat that horse to death.
Yeah. Just look at Trump and Twitter.
Truth.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it as it's why do women stay married to men that beat them up? It's just they get used to it, and they don't see any other out, and they don't see any other way, and nor do they want to. And a lot of organizations won't let them. I got an email. I got 4 emails in a span of about 20 minutes from the same company from 4 different recruiters for the same position. You know, it's crafted the same way, I mean, it was an exact template email for a recruiter job. And I'm like, I just got to, like, to this point, I just, like, put them in the spam folder. Eventually people are going to start figuring out that they can filter you out. So anytime they get an email from at whatever company, the person's never going to see the email at that point.
Or you find their boss and you send the email back to their boss.
Yeah, I loved it when you did that.
I did that about a week ago. I did that about a week ago. Hi, Talent Crank, and I let them know that hey, you guys are sending me the same email 16 times over 19 days. So I felt like I should send them the same email back 20 times over the next 20 days. I never got a response back from the boss, but that, again, shitty mechanics teach other mechanics to be shitty mechanics.
Yep.
See, what I think we should do is, the saying, you become so good at a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail.
Yep.
That's to a great part, that is our profession, LinkedIn. So anyway, and the thing is, what I like in it too, the reason why, and I really appreciate what Allison Cruz is doing with fight spam, and all of us are anti-spam, is if you think about the education model, how many school systems allow, and I say allow, students to graduate without learning to read or write, or not reading or writing well? They can easily have stopped it. Somewhere along the way, take it personally and say, I'm not going to let it happen anymore.
Right.
I mean, all of us will respond back to someone who sends a spam and say, this isn't even working. Why do you do that? And the responses are, there are only a couple of responses. What do you mean, show me? B, they'll send it to you again, like we've all gotten. Or, somewhere in the middle. But if we don't take it personally and try to rehabilitate people who are clearly spamming, then quite frankly, the collateral damage of that throughout the industry is it reduces the response rates, it reduces engagement from those of us who really do take it personally.
Absolutely. And Maureen commented, she's like, and the unfortunate part, most of their bosses would say, and your point is?
Exactly.
And you point that out. I think that's part of the problem, too, is that they don't have managers who have any accountability to the profession, like this greater cause of helping recruiting not be like a dark horse.
Look, the biggest thing I've seen over the years, and been in this a long time, and we now have these RPOs where it's just a factory. Kids are coming out of college, they can't find a job anywhere, so they go work for ABC company. It's an RPO, and they've got 300 people in a call center in Atlanta, and they last 6 months, maybe a year. Then they go do something else. They go into sales. They go into, I know a kid that tried it for 6 months, and now he's a used car salesman.
Yep.
He's making good money, but they don't last. It's crap in, crap out, and that's all they care about is just they're making money, and if they're making money, then it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. So I have a really interesting question. Well, one, Tim Sackett commented back, and he said, my oldest son has interned the last 2 summers for me in recruiting. He says, hell yes, the money is awesome.
I'll take interning for your dad counts.
Right.
It really does.
But Kelly Blockchick, who is an awesome recruiter, who is on the market, by the way, if anyone's looking, at Talent Talks on Twitter. But she asked a really interesting question. She said, how do those of us that don't suck at our jobs navigate being screened by the ignorant types? How do you show that you're a great recruiter via an application?
you'll know when your candidates come back and go, God, this was the best experience I've ever had with a recruiter. I really appreciate the time that you took to do that. You're not going to change the minds of the masses. You're not, because we will always be used car salesmen, which is kind of funny that Beck and I went to go be a used car salesman. In some people's eyes, we will always be used car salesmen. And you can't necessarily change the minds of everyone. But you can change the minds of the people that you have direct impact and access to. And if you do that, the greatest marketing tool in the world is word of mouth. It will always be word of mouth. And if you can get it in front of those people who can then tell others that they had a good experience with you, you've done your job. And the best thing you can do from there is to start pay that forward to other people that will want to learn from you later on.
It's the same thing in retail. Back in retail, we had a saying is if you have a bad experience, they're going to go out and tell 10 or 15 or 20 people they had a bad experience. If they have a good experience, they'll tell a few people that they had a good experience. So giving somebody a bad experience, my grandmother once said, she goes, people will forget your name, they'll forget what you look like, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's a huge thing in recruiting. That's a huge thing.
And I take greater pride in the ones that people who got the job. Of course, I did a good job. I got them a good job. They're happy. They've moved into a role that they're happy with. The ones that I take the best pride in are the people that did not get the job who come back and say, boy, thank you for letting me know, or thank you for the way that you handled the process. I never questioned where I stood with things. That's where I know I've done the right thing. It's easy to get that as somebody who's got a job for. It's the people you couldn't hire.
Yeah, you know, one of my fears has always been that someone's going to come back to me and say you lied to me. I don't, as a human being, I don't like that, and I think that's one of the things that differentiates, you know, abject honesty is the one thing that differentiates those who truly believe in this, because you know, we're helping people make incredible life decisions.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing you want, you know, it's hard enough when you're, and probably Pete knows this more than us, when your kids go, Daddy, I hate you. You know, they don't mean it, but they say things like, or Eddie's face in that picture, you know, recently. We are motivated by helping people to feel good about themselves. And that gives us some sort of that's where the good part of the psychic reward. You know, we can sit back and you know, someone gets a good job, someone starts, you know, on their first day, you know, we're standing up against the wall, our arms folded, smile at them as they walk past, and they smile back, and you just know. That's all. That's all you need.
So I have a question from Carrie that I think builds on this too. How have you helped tenured recruiters change their process and try new things without telling them you're an idiot, don't do that anymore?
So when I do training with recruiting teams, I actually don't go in and go, okay, here's how I would find a software engineer. I go in blind with the tools that I'm going to teach them how to use and say, okay, give me your hardest challenge right now. What are you working on right now? So that it's not staged. It's not phony baloney. Like it makes, you know, it's real. It's basically what they're working on right now, and I can show them with a certain tool or a certain methodology. Here's what you can do. I did one where I showed them, you know, the response rates that I got from a particular email that I crafted to send out to 20 or 30 people. You know, that's the kind of thing. It's not, I'm an idiot. Everybody does things a different way, and if it works for them, great. It works for them. You know, that's fantastic. But I think it's a matter of being able to show real live examples to say, hey, what you're doing might or might not be working, but here's an alternative to do it. Just Mike Wolford will tell you, there's no silver bullet. You have got to try a number of different things to get to the end result.
I mean, when I do coaching, first thing I ask somebody, before I even begin to coach them, I ask them, are you open to listening? Are you open to hearing about new things? Because I can sit there and talk about new things all day long, and they just sit there and bobble their head, and they say, okay, and then they leave, and they go back to doing exactly what they were going to do. So if they're not even open to it, then you can't really have a conversation with them. But if they're calling me and saying, hey, I'm having a problem, or Uncle Steve, I can't find this person, what are you doing? That's a totally different situation. I said, you know, I'll ask them, well, what is your process now? And have you thought about maybe doing it this way or doing it this way, just like Pete said? But they have to be open to the opportunity and open to listening and actually hearing and listening to what we're saying. If not, it's just might as well just go talk to a brick wall.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kerry knows this, and as do I suspect all the 48 people who are attending and listening to it. We all have private conversations. People call us up. We have private conversations that never see the light of day, and we run through the different scenarios. It's tell me what you're doing. What's worked, what hasn't worked. Where do you think the roadblocks are? And for the most of the time, I've found that people already have, they just need to have it pushed out of them a little bit. I mean, if anyone who's here, ask Aaron Daniels about the pew salesman problem sometime.
In Massachusetts, of all places, which I still am like, really? I mean, of all the places with all the churches, Massachusetts.
Yeah, well.
So the other thing too is, like, remember, as we said earlier, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So if somebody comes to me with a situation, I'm going to give them one block. I'm not going to give them 13 different things to look at, because then all of a sudden they're confused and they're frustrated and they're running around in circles again, and that's pointless. So I said, have you looked at it from this particular angle? Try this real quick. If it doesn't work or you're running into another problem, give me a call in 24 hours and we'll look at it at a different angle. We'll open a different door. But to give somebody like 5 or 6 or 7 different things, it's like, oh, crap. And, it's just like, now I'm confused again.
That's what I was talking about before, that massive list of things you want to teach them. And then just go through one at a time. And if you find yourself going, oh, but wait, you should also know about, just put it on the list. Walk away and put it on the list. You'll get to it later.
Yeah, totally. We had a question from Mark Fogel, and I think this is based on a Fistful of Talent article that just came out by Lori Ruderman, but he asked, should recruiting be part of HR or its own function? Why, for, or against?
Which one of us is going to jump on this first?
Own its own function. To me, for this reason. Number one, think if you are doing it so well, these are some of the things you're going to find out, particularly the sourcing, the branding, the recruiting, all that stuff together, in no special order. Competitive intelligence. Mm-hmm. Finding out what's happening in the market is the complete. That takes you right out of HR, because you're procuring information that is vital to every function, every business unit, every level of that organization. I've always believed that recruiting should report to either the COO or directly up to the CEO. For that one reason, competitive intelligence. Yeah. Competitive intelligence, market data, innovation, all those really good things. I mean, we're out there, from a sales standpoint, we do a really good job representing the company. We're also impacting sales. We're impacting marketing. We're impacting the supply chains. Everything we touch. HR, far, much narrower. My story, I'm sticking to it.
HR has a lot of process and procedure, and don't get me wrong, it serves an incredibly valuable function in any organization. Anybody that tells you not, try functioning without it for a month. And it's heavily process and procedure and administrative minutia. You know who doesn't like administrative minutia? Recruiters. So, and that's fine. That's okay. We're movers and shakers. You do. We're movers and shakers, and we want to get things done. Some of us are really good at the process and procedure of it. Others aren't. But HR is so heavily embedded in process and procedure that there are two different functions. They're black and white in terms of how they operate.
Yeah. For 2 companies that I've actually built out actual recruiting teams and recruiting functions, both teams were extremely successful because they partnered with HR. Because of OFCCP and EEOC, there's just certain rules and procedures that you do have to follow, and you do need an HR function component part of that. But the other piece is that we were actually part of business. We were part of the business development team. I reported to a COO, and he ran the business development because we actually make companies money. We were putting, the old joke, butts in seats, but for example, in the government world, there's contracts, and if there's a contractor not billing, you're not making money. Or even here at ComScore, if I don't have people actually crunching the data, then I can't really bill the client. or we're going to be late and we're going to have to discount, and so on and so forth. So you are part of that process. Steve's absolutely right. I mean, we're definitely part of business intelligence. I mean, I know what's going on in the market because I'm talking to people that are in the market. So that's how we're getting all of our salary information. I don't need somebody from in HR to tell me what salary should be. I know exactly what salary should be. If we're doing a proposal, I was part of the proposal team because the part of the proposal is the employment. So, right? So, I mean, the people that are going to be on that, so I'm going to tell them, like, we're going to win this because we've got a 3% margin and I can pay that DBA $120K. And that's how we're going to win it, because I can pay him $120K with that particular margin. And I sit down and we crunch the numbers. Recruiting can be a lot more component than just putting people in things.
It's always been said that, like, sales brings in the revenue. Well, if we don't bring in the friggin' salespeople, there is no revenue to bring in.
There's no sales.
So we're by the law of logic, we generate the revenue just as much as anybody else does.
Right.
I think part of the problem where this HR and non-HR thing comes from is the metrics that are used to measure the effectiveness of recruiting. We have these vestigial metrics in HR. The one that just gets me the most is cost per hire. It's probably one of the most nonsensical things ever created by human resources. It's wholly non-normalized, no ability with it to compare apples to oranges, and somehow that has infiltrated the genetic code of CFOs who believe that it is a viable and valid metric. We know otherwise. There are far more better efficiency metrics, economic value add metrics, which speak to an entire organization, as opposed to something that is, just found its way into a function. And quite frankly, when was the last time SHRM ever has updated its staffing teachings as part of the certification? Please, help me, God.
Right.
Always.
So, that's a good lead, though. What metrics are worth capturing? Question from Allison.
One of them I like is, this is relative to the recruiting efficiency ratio. It's direct plus indirect cost divided by the total compensation recruited. It gives you a normalized metric that says, for example, it takes X cents of a recruiting dollar to recruit $1 of compensation. And it's something that you can normalize across locations, functions, levels, seasonality. It takes into account seasonality. It's not in a REMA model, so it doesn't have all in there. But at least it's a normalized metric, so you can compare year over year, quarter over quarter, recruiter to recruiter. That, to me, that's the simplest one. I think I wish every recruiting organization would touch upon it. And it would be remiss of me not to mention one metric that makes me scratch my head is in terms of how sources are assessed. Assessing sources by the number of people that get hired is one of these things that makes me. If I have no control over it,
right,
don't make me responsible for it. Way too many organizations do that, and I understand why. But that dog don't bark, that dog don't hunt, or whatever it is. Sackett knows that phrase.
Well, the bottom line is always going to be hires, because that's what the generality is. My metric that I kind of always look at for myself, and I sometimes in certain situations have covered this metric on my own in a little spreadsheet that I've kept, is how many interviews towards the position. Because if I get the managers interviewing like 10 or 15 people and not hiring anybody, then I'm going back and saying, so we need to relook at a lot of different things, because you keep saying, yes, I want to interview these people, then they're all shit in the bed. I don't understand. So I guess the metric is wrong, or the job description is wrong. I have gone into conversations where we always have the intake meeting. I like to get into the partner meeting, and I go and talk to my partner, who's my manager, and say, okay, so I read over the rec, and I just want to highlight a couple of things, and they'll look at the rec and say, well, I didn't write this. This isn't what I want. In larger companies, that happens all the time, because it's just coming out of, guess what, HR or recruiting, and it's just a standard boilerplate position that they put out, and the manager's like, that's not what I want. I really want this, this, and this. So, if I bring them everything they ask for, and I'm not getting hires, then we're having some kind of communication problem. So, but if I only have, I'd like to say we'd like to have 3 interviews and 1 hire. That would be awesome. When I get into the point where we're going through a lot of really good resumes and either not accepting or just accepting everybody, then we have an issue.
I think there's two for me. It's offer to acceptance ratio. It's fantastic if you're getting offers out the door. If you can't close, then you're not worth shit to me. It's great that you can get 5 people to offer. If they all 5 turn you down, then it tells me you're not able to close, or you don't know enough about these people from Jump Street that is going to help to close it later on. I think the other one is source, and I don't mean necessarily just tracking sources. That's the piece of it, but also keep an eye on where your source of hires are coming from. Right? If you're getting 80% of your hires from one source, you're screwed when that source goes out of business. Right? So when I talk to recruiters, one of the first interview questions I ask them is what LinkedIn goes away tomorrow. You can't afford it anymore, and for whatever reason the site's down, they have a massive fire in their data center, you can't use it. What do you do? And if they can't answer that in a coherent way, then all right, then I know that they've got a source issue. So it's source of where you're getting people from, and not be relying too heavily on one, but also making sure you can close it when you get to the finish line.
My favorite quote: if the internet went down for good, there was no more internet, 99% of the people in recruiting would have another job.
I can tell you what Maureen Sharif's about to tell me.
No, well, she's right. Well, look.
There's mine.
I say it's, the three most important tools for a recruiter are, number 1, try to find a quiet place to work, which I fail all the time. Number 2,
really,
it's the telephone, the handshake, and your brain. By the way, well, to Pete's point about source of hire, exceptionally important. That's why I like recruiting efficiency ratio. You can compute an RER for every source of hire as well. Especially if you're dealing with larger volumes, it'll tell you which one is, at some level the most important for sourcing purposes. Yeah, but the phone. Yes, Maureen, the phone. Oh, the phone.
So I got a question from Jess Roberts about that. You made a comment, Pete, earlier about you want to hire people with agency experience. So he said, how can we push the drive that agency recruiters have to in-house? Or is it like innate? Can you coach it? Can you teach people to have that kind of agency motivation in the culture? Can you build that? Or is it something that you have to hire for?
I don't think that you can know how to teach somebody to fish unless you fished. I think you have to learn. I think you have to know how to you have to have had to chase that commission and have your living based on doing a good enough job to succeed at what you're doing. And I think that, I'm sure you could train it. There probably is ways to train it. I have a preference in not doing that. And I've had people come in to the corporate side with no other experience, and it's a 50-50 split. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I tell you, some of the best recruiters I've worked with in the past that came relatively new to recruiting are bartenders, because bartenders talk to people all day long, and they hustle and they upsell because they want you to spend more money, because you're going to get. They know that they're looking at possibly getting a 10% tip. So instead of drinking a well drink, they're going to say, "So what kind of vodka would you like? Would you like this vodka or that vodka?" And that's an extra $2 in a shot, right? So it went from an $8 shot to a $10 shot. Well, you have 4 $10 shots. That's $40. That's $4 in their pocket. If they're lucky and you're a good tipper like me, that's $8 to even maybe $10 in their pocket. Yeah. They're always hustling, and they're smart,
and
right?
Listening.
And listening.
They're always listening.
That's why I picked up on Lily. I watched her. She was my boss at the time. Literally wanted to hire her as a recruiter because she was that good. She was always on point. First thing I learned here with my data analytics team, and they told me this, when we have a saying, I can teach you SQL, I can teach you R, I can teach you Tableau, I can teach you all the tools that we have. I can't teach you how to critically think. Mm-hmm. Sure. If I have to hold your hand the entire time It's just a waste of my time.
And I'll
It's just a personality thing.
I'll add one thing to Pete and Derek is I like athletes. I think athletes are an untapped source in our profession, and you know, from having, you know, been a swimmer and, you know, taken a year and a half to lose the chlorine smell after I retired. You know, Shannon Pritchett and I, Amy Beth Quinn as well, we're all swimmers. Swimmers are very, very goal-oriented. It's repeat, 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 grind, repeat. You know, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. You know, we've seen, true story, quite a few national team swimmers moving into recruiting over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can teach, but it's to Pete's point, it's in here. You're either goal-oriented. It's hard to teach you to be goal-oriented if you haven't been goal-oriented for a very, very long time.
Yep, absolutely. So we have a question from Alan Fleur. Alan, bring the snark, Fleur. He said,
Alan, bring the snark. What a surprise.
Are you seeing more hiring managers that are threatened by candidates being better than them? Said, I've seen it going up in the last 2 years, and obviously it has an impact on hiring. Have you guys experienced that?
That's a big California thing, to be honest. And I know Alan's in Los Angeles. I've had conversations with friends of mine in San Francisco. Ageism right now is the #1 lawsuit in HR in California. The younger folks out there are nervous because, you know, people like me, I'm not really interested in being a manager. I don't want to be a VP of talent acquisition. It would drive me insane. I like to recruit. But, you know, me coming in sometimes into a situation scares the hell out of people. You know, because I've been doing this 20 years, they've been doing it 5, and they're my manager. The smart managers do what Colin Powell said. Surround yourself with really smart people, let them do what they do, and then take credit for it.
Or ask the old bastard how to take credit for it.
Yeah.
There are ways to do that without coming across as a word that Matt Charney might use.
Yeah, and we can be as terrified as we are right now with the cabinet that is being put together by the Orange Man. So,
don't even get me started. Okay, we're all like,
yeah, not a lot of time. Not a lot of time. I don't even want to get Pete started because his head will explode.
We will not avoid F-bombs, but we will avoid politics here. Okay, so we have about 5 more minutes, and I know that there are more questions, but I wanted to do something a little different for the end of Recruiting Live, and it's a little word association. Because these are 3 of the pretty fast-thinking, 3 of my favorite people to just talk crap with and shoot the shit. So we're going to shoot some shit. All right, so I want to start with millennials.
Misunderstood.
I'm a millennial inside of a boomer body.
Generation Y.
Yeah. How about humble bragging? I'm stealing some of these.
Lose your Facebook license.
Really, I mean, go sit in the corner.
You're shag with my word, and I think that makes me the first official swear, by the way.
Oh, no.
Delivered work to my client today. Client was happy. Congratulations, you fucking did your job.
Instagram, fuck you.
Really? Oh my God, I'm kicking ass in first week in 2017. I can't believe how much ass I'm kicking.
I actually saw a post like that.
Why do you think I said that?
First week of 2017 and I'm kicking ass. I'm like, really? Congratulations. You got 51 more weeks left.
I just hugged the first week of 2017. I'm trying to be a better me.
I'm still trying to wash off 2016.
You are so beautiful.
All right, lions. I'll let Radloff go first on that one. A LinkedIn lion.
A LinkedIn lion. I can't even say it or I'm going to get in trouble.
I'm going to respectfully decline to answer based on the comments of my former article.
Which by the way, you know, I remember Pete wrote that article. He calls up. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think I've done the right thing. I think people are mad at me. I go, oh, fuck it if they can't take a joke.
Yeah, and now you can't be a LinkedIn Lion anymore because they've actually capped how many people you can be connected to. And they started a thing called Lion to get everybody connected, and then they realized, oh shit, we're losing money because everybody's getting connected for free.
Hey, you know what? We're now LinkedIn Bobcats. We've just created a new term.
Hoopers.
Love it.
Social recruiting.
You're doing it wrong.
That tweet's
You are
not
doing it wrong. To be social, you actually have to talk to people.
Yeah, look, I'm doing social recruiting now. Watch this. Hello, Maureen. How are you doing? Fine.
Did you call Maureen? Oh, I thought you called her. That would have been funny.
She's on the line, so she's watching.
Oh, she's on live? Okay.
Yeah.
You know she's laughing. You know she's there stuck in Columbus, Ohio, laughing.
I think actually in the article I wrote about that, about social, I think I actually used Maureen's line about, and I can't remember what it was, but she had a really, really smart thing to say. It's like, to be social means it's a two-way street. Being social, just staring at other people's profiles and stalking them, that's not social.
Right.
No, you know what I mean? It's not.
Is social recruiting an animal bad word yet?
I think it might be. If it's not, it will be this year.
Actually,
When I get on with them, I'm going to make it a bad word. That and employment blanding. That's one of my favorite one of my favorite Levyisms is employment blanding. I have an employment
Hey, we resemble that.
I tweet like once a week.
Last one for the white dude panelists. Sackett called it diversity sourcing. They're all like,
We're being candid here, right? We're being candid. I'm a technical recruiter. Diversity isn't really a freaking issue I have to deal with.
Yeah.
If anything, I don't hire enough white people.
This is a very true statement, actually, for us. I'll tell you what, from diversity, I think it's, I will leave it with this. Just be good to one another. What the hell does it matter? There's a reason why the EEOC said you're not supposed to put on, or it's not legally allowed to, and nobody does, put your picture on a resume.
Which, incidentally, mind you, think about how video interviewing is going to kill that thing. We're going to have video interviewing first. Oh, no, we won't be able to see the color of their skin. Just like when you do a video interview, we don't see that you're rolling your eyes.
Yeah.
You're not.
Oh, yeah. I actually interviewed for a job, oddly enough, in Knoxville, Tennessee, a number of years ago with the government agency, and had a number of conversations with them. They never looked up my LinkedIn profile for some reason, or my picture on the LinkedIn wasn't a picture of me. But I think because of my voice being deep, they actually thought I was an African American. So when I walked into the room, I watched everybody's faces just go, "Oh, hi, it's another white guy," and the whole room was full of middle-aged white women. So there was no diversity. They were hoping that I would be this black guy that could be the diverse guy. I'm the person that they get to point to, see, look, see, we're not racist.
oh yeah, I'm the lesbian. I get it.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, that's our hour. Time flies when you're having fun. For everybody who's still on the line, I want to let you know that next week I have a guy named Mikey McPhail on. He works at TapFin, and he is a giant data nerd, and I say that with the utmost respect. So if you are interested in talking metrics and the how and why the way that you do it right now might not be the best way, he's your guy. So come back next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking through that. This recording will be available by Monday. And thank you to my three stooges. I so appreciate all of you for being here. All right. Everybody who's on the line, thank you for being here too. And we'll see you next week.
You guys.
All right.